We will move on to our next question from our experiencers. This one comes from Oak. Some experiencers are able to call in orbs or spheres of light. Is there any specific interest in these particular experiencers over others? And are there any theories, or can you speculate what these orbs or spheres of light are versus traditional UAPs?
Oh, I'm going to get in so much trouble for even trying to answer that one. Um, so, what they are, let's start with that. Um, you know, again, yes, I know of people who claim this ability. I haven't seen it myself. But that doesn't mean that I won't speculate. Uh, if anything, they certainly, whatever they are, seem self motivated, right? And they seem intelligently controlled. Seem. If. And so, okay, that's fine. Let's say they are. Okay, well, what kind of object could do that, that if it passed through something wouldn't leave a trace? Or, could it pass through a window? Well, these things have been seen to pass through objects. Can they pass through metal? If they're somehow electrically composed objects, I would think that they wouldn't be able to pass through metal. But then we know of videos within protected environments where these things have been seen to show up. So somehow they did pass through it. So what is it? I don't know. I have no problem, though, imagining that consciousness can embody itself in a form of space-time or plasma, if that's what you want to call it, as a self-organizing principle and object. I have no problem with that. But I also have no problem imagining that it's kind of like, again, what Hal was talking about, where it's an advanced scout object that is controlled from a distance, maneuvered from a distance, and transmits information back to the controller from a distance. And just because somebody calls for it and it shows up doesn't mean it's magic. It could mean that the person driving it or running it is specifically looking for that kind of a signal because they know that person will see it when they call it and will interact with it. So imagine you're a species from the Andromeda galaxy and you're sending these probes through quantum wormholes or something to look at the humans on planet Earth. And maybe you've done enough observation without doing anything, without interacting, but now you want to see, okay, well, let's poke the monkeys and see what happens and who can see us, and what would they do when we do this, and what information can we pick up when we get near them. So it's kind of like you think of it as a anthropologic study. I don't know. I'm just making it up. But it's like Hal said before, until you can take the hypothesis off the table, all hypotheses are allowed. You can rank order them and say, these are the ones that I think are more important versus the ones below. And here's the threshold above which I can test. And here are the ones that are frankly ridiculous, like micro elves run the universe, unless you've done DMT. And people do think that there's micro elves running the universe. I've never done DMT. So I know, believe me, I'm like, so anyway, I just find it fascinating. I mean, there's too many pictures of them, too many videos of them that you can't ignore it. Doesn't mean they're real, but I just can't ignore it. And it's fun. I mean,
Garry, what have we learned about the ones that pass through the human body? So can you learn because of the symptoms that are incurred in the person who's had them pass through them? Can you learn more about the nature of the object itself or the orb?
Well, one of the people that I think it's a well discussed case of an individual who had something like that happen to them. They did have scarring within their body. as seen medically. And this is a kind of, again, the reason why I like medical and materials is because I can go back to that person and take another X-ray of them or another CRT scan and see the scar and see there's a linear path through the person that showed that something happened. So what that tells you is that the object interacted with human physiology in sort of an electromagnetic manner that caused the scar. So that tells you it's not some effluvial, thing of matter or of objects that has no interaction with our universe. It interacts with things, so it's not like completely exotic. At least that particular case.
Interesting. Jim, did you have something you wanted to add?
So I don't know what they are, but there seem to be several different versions of them. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that, I mean, it's, the question actually brings up a lot of interesting connotations here. So an experiencer summoning something is, right now, it's a fallacy that all we are is receivers, and we are just sitting here being inbound antennas. But you don't forget, antennas go both ways. I mean, any antenna you make or buy or whatever actually can transmit. So that we can transmit out information to the phenomena is actually quite revealing, because now if you can do that and communicate with it, you might be able to have a dialogue of some sort. So if they can summon this phenomena to happen, and actually, to be honest with you, if they can summon it, that means that you can have a much more controlled experimental laboratory where you can bring these things in. But just the ability to go out to something and communicate with something is significant.
Do you know of any cases, Jim, where verifiably, that you've seen people, or that you're aware of people having that ability to call them in or interact in that way?
So so I have, maybe 100. So again, I have thousands of these narratives, and it always starts off sometimes where they say, I sat down, I meditated, and I brought in all this information. So it seems that when people put themselves in a situation, they have the ability to do something that causes the experience to happen. And then, if there's a medical condition that happens afterwards or whatever, it seems that there are certain people that have the ability to create, there's a sink as opposed to, or a source as opposed to a sink.
And this kind of relates to the question from before about, will scientists be embarrassed by new discovery? Just in the last year or so, neurophysiologists have shown and proven that, the alpha, beta, gamma, theta waves that we all know about are not just there because there's some side product of how the brain functions. They're actually there to organize how the brain functions. And information is passed from one area of the brain to another via the resonances. And so scientists are excited about it because it explains a lot. Like, part of it seems to be a clock that keeps the system running like a CPU clock. The other seems to be passing information back and forth, and it organizes how the brain is functioning. And we know of some individuals who claim to have abilities. Tyler Henry being one of them, for instance, who was hooked up to one of these an EEG and when he went into the state, I think it was his theta waves went off the charts. And he was receiving information. And so, for all I know, and Tyler, I apologize if don't take this the wrong way, he could induce a state that was comparable to a DMT experience. I don't know. So, or a state that we would want to be able to medically or instrumentally induce in somebody so that they could have such interactions. I mean, certainly meditation is, I wish I had the willpower to sit down and meditate long enough.
Yeah, well, it does appear to be a correlation. I know someone was interested up in Canada, a fellow by the name of Dr. Persinger, as to whether there was some functioning in the brain that could be measured when people were doing remote viewing. And so he had Ingo Swann come up to his laboratory and put on this helmet where they're measuring basically low frequency electromagnetic signaling. And so he did remote viewing, and they were measuring these signals, and they found that during the periods in which he was getting good results, the signals looked a certain way, and when he was not getting good results, it looked a different way. So he felt that he had come up with kind of a pattern of what works for remote viewing. But what he did was, to follow up on that as a test of the hypothesis, was to bring in other people, like student volunteers, and then he put the helmet on, and then he would induce that kind of brainwave activity. And it turned out they apparently did good remote viewing and experiments when that activity was being generated. So there does seem to be actual correlations between what we do, even as we move off into a paranormal area, and what our brains are doing.